The UCLA men's basketball season's in full swing, and we need you to get to Pauley Pavilion to support the Bruins. Don't miss a single chance to see this year's exciting team, led by Donovan Dent, Eric Daly Jr., Sky Clark, and Tyler Bilodeau. Pauley Pavilion, presented by Westcon Financials, the home of the greatest tradition in all of college basketball. We can't wait to have you join us as the Bruins continue to build on that legacy. With big-time matchups, go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today before it's too late. Let's get Pauley rocking.
Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. We are doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson at 3, and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with my buddy Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money. We're live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. And, of course, all your favorite podcast platforms. A record-shattering day on Wall Street to continue a spectacular performance here in 2026. Another reason to break out the champagne today with stocks closing at record highs. Investors continue to watch the situation in Venezuela and the oil markets, and we'll also be getting some new readings on the economy later this week. Bitcoin and precious metals also rallying, oil prices pulling back in the face of all this. The S&P 500 closed at a record high today, up another 43 points at 6,945. The Dow up nearly 500 at the bell at 49,462. Its first close above 49K. And the Nasdaq up 151 points at 23,547. The yield in the 10-year note now at 4.17%. We see the price of oil hovering at around $56 a barrel. Precious metals also rallying. We'll be taking a closer look at all of that. Investors also taking in the latest news related to NVIDIA and AMD's competing AI roadmaps that were presented at the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. The CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, launching NVIDIA's next-generation Vera Rubin AI superchip platform. That was the big news this week there. Also, we saw Amazon and Micron and Broadcom move higher as well. Precious metals moving higher with silver, get this, above $80 an ounce. Bitcoin hovering at around 93K, right now just below 94K. Morgan Stanley plans to launch exchange-traded funds holding Bitcoin and Solana, according to filings that we got today. We'll get an update on the record run-up in precious metals with Barry Stuppler, the founder of Stuppler & Company, and Mint State Gold at mintstategold.com, based in Woodland Hills. We see gold above $4,500 an ounce here right now, $4,505 and change, up about $10 here at the moment. Copper continues on a run, hitting all-time highs. Taking a look at some of the other movers here, Qualcomm shares higher today after the chip maker unveiled its latest PC chip for Microsoft laptops. Price of oil pulling back since U.S. forces apprehended the Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro and his wife over the weekend. Crude oil in New York hovering at around $56 a barrel right now. The price of gas around the U.S. this year is expected to dip to $2.97 a barrel. $2.97 a gallon on average, down 13 cents from 2025. That would be the lowest level seen since 2020, according to a new analysis released today by our friends at Gas Money. Venezuela's socialist government was close to China, Russia, Cuba, and Iran. Also, Venezuela's Chinese-made military defense network, this is interesting, once touted as the strongest in that region, collapsed rapidly under the U.S. electronic warfare and precision strikes. We'll talk about what's happening with Maduro and his wife also appearing in a federal courthouse in New York yesterday, while his vice president is now the head of government in Venezuela, pending further developments. What might be next? We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it with China expert Gordon Chang, senior fellow at the Gatestone Institute, author of numerous books on China, including Plan Red, China's project to destroy America. On X, can be found at Gordon G. Chang. But first, on this record-shattering day on Wall Street, on your money, the markets, the economy, and the whole works now, joining us live to kick off the new year, top-ranked money manager Ken Winans, president and chief investment officer at Winans Investments at winansinvestments.com. Ken, also author of numerous books, including Investment Atlas 1, 2, and 3, also Forbes magazine contributor. He has his crypto credentials, host of Winning with Winans in Las Vegas, and the Wealth Minute feature here on 790 KBC. Ken Winans, thank you very much for joining us live, and Happy New Year to you.
Frank, Happy New Year's, and it's such a privilege to be on this show when we're having record highs hitting the stock market in the United States in spite of all the volatile news that's going on around the world. And I have to say it's been interesting because over the weekend I had a lot of a lot of people contacting me, both from a commodity standpoint, also from a stock standpoint. And I said, a lot of the same people that were calling me were the same people calling me during the Iran strikes. And what we're very clearly seeing is, from a geopolitical standpoint, that economic news is basically taking the helm over geopolitical news, and that the fact that the market just has been on a tear is unbelievable. The other quick thing I want to say is that it's not just oil stocks going up, Frank. It is a very broad-based, breadthy market that has a lot of good stocks in different areas moving up, and that's important to keep in mind when you have these kind of things happening. But yeah, to have the first week of January being this strong is usually a very good sign.
On the air live with top-ranked money manager Ken Widens, and record-shattering performance for stocks. And look at silver and gold. That Burl Ives trade we were talking about over the holidays continues here with gold and silver. Silver and gold hitting all-time highs again, with gold above $4,500 an ounce and silver an eye-popping $80 an ounce. So where do you see the precious metals go from here?
Well, on a broader picture on the commodity situation, with Venezuela basically being dealt with, just similar to what we did with Iran in the Middle East, you're stabilizing a lot of commodity complexes around the world. And especially, we often don't think about it, but South America is a place where we get a lot of our commodities, and including, in fact, many of those countries down there are large gold, silver producers. So again, I think it's a good sign to see that we have this rally going on and that demand will continue. I noticed you talked about the fact we're having the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas this week. They talk about all these new chips and all these new devices coming out. What I see every single time I hear about this is more demand for gold and silver and other precious metals that go into each one of those chips. So again, it's not just people buying jewelry, Frank. It's what's driving our modern electronic society.
And copper also in on the party, as we've talked about many times over the years. Ken Widens, it's jokingly said that copper, they call it Dr. Copper because it's the only metal with a degree in economics, they say. It's when copper goes up, it's expected the economy is strong. That appears to be what's happening here. What's going on with copper and anything else that's catching your attention in the commodity space?
It's interesting you bring it. Well, and I'm really glad we're talking about it. So much of the time, people don't even talk about copper. And you look at a lot of the competing media sources; they'll focus on gold, silver, and platinum to a point. But you're right, copper being that pure industrial play. And by the way, some very large copper producers in South America. Again, the stabilization of the southern part of our hemisphere is a very, very good thing from the commodity standpoint. I mean, we can start talking about beef. We can talk about a lot of agricultural commodities. We can talk about certainly, oil, natural gas. This is a big, big deal what's happening right now, however people may feel about the actual action itself. But this does have economic ramifications that should benefit this country.
On the air live with top-ranked money manager Ken Widens. And, of course, you are in Vegas. The Consumer Electronics Show is underway. The head of NVIDIA making a splash with his big announcements yesterday. We see NVIDIA stock pulling back slightly today at 187 and change. What about those announcements there, and what can we expect in the AI world here in 2026?
I think AI especially, it's going to, in my case, I'm waiting to see the actual earnings reports that come out from a lot of these companies. And the reason I bring it up, Frank, is, and by the way, I would bring up, for anybody who does enjoy my articles in Forbes, I just wrote an article about the fact that so many of the newer tech stocks themselves are really, they're causing some issues for the S&P 500 being counted as a valuation gauge. But I think that once we finally see where the earnings are, it can justify these very lofty multiples that most of these stocks are trading at. But with that, I actually think that will be the case, that earnings will be very, very good. One of the quick thing I think is worth bringing up, Frank, is that a lot of news about, last year's famed trading. Congratulations to people that played it, were the move of money into foreign stocks. I think the other thing you'll find is that with interest rates going down this year, and the fact that we're going to find that Treasury bond sales this month will be very, very strong, you're going to find the dollar is going to stabilize a great deal. And with that happening, money's going to start really flowing back to the mothership, better known as the United States. And I think that's good news, especially for our friends who are in the real estate sector that are hoping for something that will reverse the fortunes of especially the California real estate market.
Yeah, and we'll be talking more about that tomorrow, by the way, with Rick Caruso, who's set to lead off this show 24 hours from now regarding the one-year anniversary of the firestorms in the Palisades and Malibu in Altadena. So we'll have coverage on that on the one-year anniversary. It's hard to believe it's in a full year as of tomorrow when we had that horrific windstorm and fire got into the mix and that horrific firestorm, which was so deadly and devastating. What about what's happening here with cryptos now? If you can put your crypto hat here on for just a moment here. We've seen a pretty decent rebound today with Bitcoin above 94K at one point. Right now it's just below 94,000. Ethereum is back just shy of 3,300. And Doge, which I know you love hearing, is at 15 cents at the moment. We do quote Doge here as well. What are your thoughts on what's going on with the cryptos here as we head into the new year?
I think that the crypto play for 2026, and we'll see as things begin to gain clarity here, it's really going to come out with this idea of deregulation that we expect to be hitting more this year, especially before the midterms. I know that Congress wants to try to get certain things done, and that had always been part of the agenda for year two. I think with having that happen, I keep bringing up a lot of the folks that, look, I keep a very close eye on what's going on in the stable coin world. And it's kind of interesting is that, people are trying to find a way to play commodities without physically going into the futures contracts. And everybody keeps saying, hey, this is a perfect space for stable coins. So I think you're going to find a lot of new coin offerings this year, and they're going to be well represented, and they're going to be liquid, and they're going to be backed by some very large firms. Item number 2, it is a further deregulation of the banks. If you have the banks are going to be finally allowed to do a lot more stuff they were held back on before, or there was murkiness in the regulatory picture of what and how they could do things. If that is actually clear and there's no more legal hurdles to go through, again, I think that you'll find there'll be new buyers for crypto in a lot of different areas.
On there live with top-ranked money manager Ken Widens. Should be noted, analysts at Bernstein maintaining their forecast that crypto will hit 150,000 this year and 200,000 in 2027. Have you put out any predictions on where Bitcoin or any of these other coins go from here?
They have been trading in a range really for the last part of 6 months, and I think it's partly because the trade did get very crowded when it was hitting new highs. And I do think there were people just taking profits. I think they said, hey, I made back a lot of money that I lost, especially with what happened with Ether just going all over the place like a bucking bronco. That unnerved a lot of people. But I think at the end of the day, if we get more of the plumbing in place for the crypto space, it's going to allow there to be more stability and to finally break out of this range that it's been in. But Frank, I also have to say this. I think it's very important. If gold and silver and platinum hadn't had the runs they had, I think it took some of the wind out of the sails of crypto. There were a lot of people I know that were really eyeing crypto. They were committed to it. And then we had the pullback in the fall last year, and they saw gold, silver, and platinum taking off. They just said, forget crypto for now. I'm going to go with the basically the metals themselves. And I think as long as that is going on, you're going to have a lot of people saying, I don't really need to do it right now. I'll wait and see.
You're also a market historian. You have Investment Atlas 1, 2, and 3 out. I thought of you over the weekend, hearkening back to what happened when the U.S. took out Pineapple Face in Panama. Manuel Noriega, remember that? Back in 89.
Oh, absolutely.
Carapina was his nickname, Pineapple Face, and he ended up in federal prison, died in prison here in the United States. What about what happened to the markets back then? And are you drawing any historical comparisons to what happened then to what just happened over the weekend?
Frank, I always put history in the driver's seat. That's how we manage money at my company. And it's funny because I brought up certainly what happened. I love that Pineapple Face. And again, he was brought up to the United States and faced trial up here. Let's also not forget what happened with Chapo Guzman, the drug kingpin in Mexico. So it is not unusual for the United States to get in and to deal with people that are, again, if you get into narco trafficking and you happen to be in a political position of being considered a dictator in these countries, I mean, we have history to do this. It's going to be interesting. I've been asked, well, what if you start having the entanglements with the legal system and you start having judges starting to rule in favor of Maduro? I just don't think that's going to happen, but it is a midterm year. And I would tell everybody, We should just get ready for volatility this year. What happened last year, certainly we don't want to have that happen again. But as bull markets age, they get more volatile. And I think that a lot of the drama that's going to play out politically, especially surrounding this, could be very interesting. I mean, I've been laughing at some of the headlines. I mean, and again, everybody has a different opinion on the priorities, but, worrying that we're going to somehow attack Greenland now and take it. I mean, some people's imaginations are running wildly out of control. And I would just again say, like you said, historically, it really doesn't have a big bearing on what happens in the overall trend of any of the markets, including the commodity markets.
All right, all of this happening since the new mayor of New York, socialist mayor of New York, took power here, and looks like some of the financial companies are fleeing the Big Apple, the financial capital of the world. What's your reaction to that and some of the news related to what's happening in New York?
Frank, it's interesting. I know the audience knows that I do write regularly for Forbes, and I did put out 2 new articles that I would recommend reading. But last fall, I wrote an article about Las Vegas being the new Western Wall Street, and I was really canting it for especially firms in Southern California that were considering the cost of doing business in California. But to be honest with you, I'm getting a lot of people contacting me from these other places saying, hey, we read your article. Tell us more about Vegas and why you think it works. I know it's the redistribution of the Wall Street system. And, certainly Texas has got a big lead on everything. But mark my words, the big thing that we want to watch right now is what is NASDAQ and what is the New York Stock Exchange going to do. And I don't think it's remotely out of the realm of possibility that both of these firms begin to say, you know what, it's costing us a lot of money to be in New York. And for that matter, let's talk about futures in Chicago. I mean, I think that any path is open for the financial service industry to move around and to go to better places within the United States. And that's one of the great things about our system and how this country operates. The only thing I would say that people keep bringing up in my article is that I keep talking about that Nevada really is a disaster-free state. We don't have much in the way of earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, and other things. And I do know that people are concerned if you pick up a major stock exchange and you move it to a place like Florida, you could have a natural disaster cause some serious problems. So, but no, I think things are in flux, Frank.
See it tonight, read about it tomorrow, but hear it now on Mottek On Money, live on 790 KABC. Ken Winans, thank you very much for that thorough assessment as always. Looking forward to many more conversations here in the new year. Happy New Year to you and your team there, Ken. Thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Take care, Frank. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, Ken Winans, WinansInvestments.com, author of numerous books. His latest is Investment Atlas 3, Forbes magazine contributor, and host of Winning with Winans in Las Vegas, also the Wealth Minute feature right here on 790 KABC. The Dow above 49,000 for the first time at the close. The S&P 500 also rallying to a record high close of 43 points at 6,945. The NASDAQ up 151 at 23,547, getting close to its all-time high. The yield in the 10-year note now at 4.17%. The price of oil in the $56 range now, pulling back again today as we watch what's happening with Venezuela. The oil company stocks, which had a big pop yesterday following the epic news over the weekend that U.S. forces took out the Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro and brought him to New York for an arraignment yesterday on drug charges. Chevron shares, which popped yesterday, down more than 7 today at 156 and change. ExxonMobil down more than 4 at 121 and change. Taking a look at the precious metals, another big day for gold, above 4,500 right now at 45.05 an ounce. Silver is above $80 an ounce. Platinum at 2,433 and change. And palladium, we'll start quoting that one now at 1,884 an ounce. We'll talk precious metals with the expert coming up here shortly. Barry Stuppler will be with us, founder of Mint State Gold in Woodland Hills and Stuppler and Company. Taking a look at the cryptos now, we see a Bitcoin having a good day today. It was up around 94K, right now just below that at 93,715. Ethereum just below 3,300. It got a pop in the last day or two. And Doge at the moment at 15 cents.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
The UCLA men's basketball season's in full swing, and we need you to get to Pauley Pavilion to support the Bruins. Don't miss a single chance to see this year's exciting team, led by Donovan Dent, Eric Daly Jr., Sky Clark, and Tyler Bilodeau. Pauley Pavilion, presented by Westcon Financials, the home of the greatest tradition in all of college basketball. We can't wait to have you join us as the Bruins continue to build on that legacy. With big-time matchups, go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today before it's too late. Let's get Pauley rocking.
Hey, I'm Chris Van Vliet, host of the #1 podcast, Insight with Chris Van Vliet. On the show, I sit down with the biggest names in pro wrestling, sports, film, and beyond. These are real, long-form conversations that go behind the scenes and beyond the headlines with people like John Cena, The Undertaker, Cody Rhodes, and more. We talk mindset, motivation, and what it takes to succeed. This is Insight with Chris Van Vliet. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KBC. Happy New Year. Stocks at record highs. Gold and silver at or near record highs. The price of gold above $4,500 an ounce. Silver above $80 an ounce. Yep, you heard me. Joining us live now is Barry Stuppler, founder of Stuppler & Company and Mint State Gold in Woodland Hills. Barry, Happy New Year to you, sir.
It's an incredible time for a lot of our clients. Looking at the markets and watching them trade as actively as they are, it's just an exciting time. I mean, we've got gold near a record high, silver near a record high, platinum making a new record high today, and the palladium near a record high. And all these metals are moving up dramatically on excellent volume. I watched the markets trade in China and in Mumbai, India. And by the way, I'm going to be in India. I'm going to be in Mumbai about a week from today, so visiting an old friend. And then the markets move to London, and then they come back to New York, and the cycle starts again. But when you see the activity levels, particularly in China and in India, it's incredible, the volume and the fact that the markets take off from here. They go up in China, they go up in India, they settle back a little bit in London, and then when they hit the New York market in the States, the market tends to take the direction that the news is forecasting. And obviously the news is what's really driving this, with the Venezuelan attack, the things that President Trump has talked about possibly Colombia and Greenland and other things, is obviously causing a lot of insecurity in financial circles around the world. And that's part of the thing that's driving the markets, other than central bank buying.
On the air live with Barry Stuppler, who also, by the way, has served as president of the American Numismatic Association, the rare coin expert as well. Yeah, so platinum certainly getting a shine here right now, hovering at around 2,433 and change. And palladium, let's not forget that one, at around 1,884. Gold at above 4,500, silver above $80 an ounce. We see analysts at UBS today put out a note seeing gold climbing to 5,000 by the end of the first quarter of this new year. Where do you see the precious metals go from here?
Well, I'm always tend to be somewhat conservative. I made my predictions yesterday in my weekly market report that I sent out to all of our clients. I look for gold to be about 5,000 by June of this year, and silver to be obviously to be over $80. So I mean, to be over 85 to $90. Right now, you're seeing the activity level, particularly in silver. The amount of percentage move in silver is really outpacing gold, and the volume has been extraordinary. The amount of demand, particularly for silver in India. Obviously, we talked about this before, that India monetized silver, and that's driving a lot of new demand because people in India can bring in their silver jewelry, their silver flatware, their silver coins, and collateralize it at a bank at 80 to 85% of the value. And that's also causing a substantial amount of new investment in silver. And China's starting to look at silver as a monetized metal also. It used to be just a commodity, and now all of a sudden silver is looking like it's going to be commoditized, which means that central banks will start acquiring it like they acquire gold as well as other foreign currencies. But it's just an interesting time to watch the demand created by what's happening in the news, and the reaction to what we see on the news is just extraordinary.
Yeah, well, we've been having these conversations over many decades now, and every time there's a record high, that's just human nature, I guess. That's when people are interested in it and pile in. What about platinum? Are you getting more interest in platinum today now that it, too, has hit a record high?
We're starting to see platinum buyers. Some people are switching out of. I had a number of clients who called in October when gold broke above 4,000, who were debating, who had a substantial profit, were debating selling it, and I talked some of them into acquiring silver. I talked some of them into switching to platinum to diversify their holdings. But most of the people I talked out of selling because I just asked them a simple question: what are you going to do with the money? Do you have a better use for the money? Is it a vacation? Is it a home? Is it your kid's college education? If you don't have a better use for the money, it's just going higher. And they listened to me, and I got a lot of thank yous around the Christmas season from clients who were thinking about selling, but I ultimately switched them into a different metal. And obviously the gold to silver switch was highly rewardable. Gold was around 4,000, and it's up about 10%. Silver was around $50 at that time, and now it's about 80, up 60%. So we're seeing a lot of people diversified, and that's what's also driving platinum. There's some diversification in the people that are looking at the gold and silver prices being as high as they are and figure platinum is still a bargain, even at the current level.
As the old saying goes, what goes up must come down. Is there concern that we might see a crash, as we did back in 79, 80 when silver hit $50 an ounce, close to 50 an ounce back in those days, and then it pulled back rather dramatically. Any flies in this Chardonnay that you see here?
Well, we could see a correction of silver back to maybe $65, $70, maybe gold back down towards 42, 43. I don't see much on the downside. There's just too much buying and too many things happening in the news that affects world markets, and it's scary. I mean, there was something on the wire I saw the other day that talked about China. Now that the U.S. can invade Venezuela, why can't China try to take on Taiwan? And that would be World War III. So, I mean, obviously things like this are scary. I mean, possibly invading Colombia and talking about acquiring Greenland. If they tried to acquire Greenland, that would destroy any NATO relationship we had. The NATO alliance would go right down the tubes. And all those things create concern and drive people to buying precious metals and looking for elements of safety that they can in a case like this, in a situation like this.
Are you hearing people coming out of crypto and going into precious metals? Since you're right on the front line, face to face with customers, are more people buying or selling at these prices? Give us some of the things you're hearing out there from Mr. and Mrs. Southern California.
Well, there has been some crypto liquidation. It just takes them a while to get the money if they were able to get the money. Some people just let me know that they were going to buy a certain amount of gold, and I said, fine, not a problem. Just let me know when you have the funds. And they call me back a week later and say, I'm having a hard time getting my money out of Bitcoin and whatever. There's computer problems, and I'm having problems with that. Now, you have to understand, I don't deal in that world. We have instant liquidity in gold and silver. I mean, it's like instant. When people sell me stuff, we pay immediately. When people ship stuff in, we pay by wire. And it always happens relatively quickly. We're talking at least within 24 hours or less. So I'm used to instant liquidity. And when people tell me that they can't get their money out of an investment, I kind of second. And it's stocks. You get stocks get paid off the next day or two. So, I mean, when you're talking about not getting paid for a week to 2 weeks after you've made the sale, fail, that tells me that there's something to be concerned about. So I don't have that many people right now that are thinking about selling their gold and buying Bitcoin, but I have a lot of people going the other way, trying to get rid of their Bitcoin to acquire gold, silver, or platinum. So we're seeing that, and it's just interesting time because there's a lot of people in Southern California, and we obviously have clients that are worldwide that ship in material or we ship out to them. And the feeling is that it's a lot more concerning about what's happening in world events, and they're just buying it for protection, and that's what we're seeing. Central bank buying last month in November was at a record level, and the leading country was Poland and Brazil. Now, this happened in November, obviously, and the strike was over the weekend. But a lot of the countries in South America now are starting to be aggressive and buy gold. Their central banks are buying gold, which is interesting. I've never seen that before. Mostly, it's been China, India, and countries like that. But now it's all over.
All right. Well, I know it's a Christmas song, but I think next time you come on, we're gonna play Silver and Gold, Burl Ives. Maybe for the rest of the year here, given what's going on here. But we share your excitement, Barry. I'm excited for you and appreciate you coming on with this important analysis on what's happening in the precious metals markets, getting so much attention now with gold and silver on a record run, and now platinum joining the party here. Palladium also on the rise. Very happy New Year to you and your team there. Thank you very much for taking the call this afternoon.
All right. Take care of yourself. Right.
Thank you very much. Barry Stuppler, founder of Stuppler & Company and Mint State Gold in Woodland Hills at mintstategold.com. Live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC.
The UCLA women's basketball season is one you don't want to miss. Your top 10 Bruins are well on their way to another Final Four run. We need you to get to Pauley to support this incredible team. Led by Lauren Betts, Gabriela Jaquez, and Kiki Rice, newcomers Gianna Neepkins and Charlize Ledger-Walker. This group plays an exciting brand of basketball and wins. The time is now to come to see these stars in action. Big-time matchups are coming. Go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today. Can't wait to see you in Westwood cheering on the Bruins.
Hey, I'm Chris Van Vliet, host of the #1 podcast, Insight with Chris Van Vliet. On the show, I sit down with the biggest names in pro wrestling, sports, film, and beyond. These are real, long-form conversations that go behind the scenes and beyond the headlines with people like John Cena, The Undertaker, Cody Rhodes, and more. We talk mindset, motivation, and what it takes to succeed. This is Insight with Chris Van Vliet. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues. Record-shattering day for the stock market. Precious metals at or near all-time highs. Bitcoin also on the rebound. The price of oil in all this pulling back. Price of oil moving lower since the U.S. forces apprehended Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro and his wife over the weekend. Crude oil in New York hovering at around $56 a barrel now. Translating to what's happening at the pumps, except here in California, it seems the average price of gas around the U.S. this year is expected to dip to $2.97 a gallon, down 13 cents from 2025, the lowest seen since 2020, according to a new analysis released by our friends at Gas Buddy. Venezuela's socialist government was close to China, Russia, Cuba, and Iran. Also, this is interesting, Venezuela's Chinese-made military defense network collapsed rapidly under U.S. electronic warfare and precision strikes. This was once touted as the strongest in the region, exposing major technological gaps in Chinese weaponry when confronted by top-tier U.S. forces. Maduro and his wife appeared in a federal courthouse in New York this week, while the vice president of Venezuela is now the head of government there, pending further developments. Let's bring in China expert Gordon Chang now, senior fellow at the Gatestone Institute, author of numerous books on China, including Plan Red, China's project to destroy America on X. He can be found at Gordon G. Chang. Gordon Chang, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Well, thank you, Frank.
It was wonderful to see you at your speech at the Lincoln Club this past year, where we discussed this possible scenario. It has happened. The U.S. Taking out the head of Venezuela, who is very close to China, as you noted in your presentation that day. Give us your reaction to the epic news here.
One of the things that people haven't talked about is that the swift capture of Maduro, his extraction, and his appearance in a Manhattan court undermines fatally, I think, China's narrative that the U.S. is finished. Xi Jinping was telling everybody that China was ascendant, the U.S. was gone, and now that narrative is very hard to maintain. Now, I know a lot of it is just because of the symbolic aspect of the taking of Maduro, but nonetheless, I do think that countries around the world have a new assessment of American power.
And as the latest BBC report notes, only hours before he was seized in a nighttime raid, the Venezuelan dictator had been praising the Chinese leader as an older brother with a powerful message as a leader to the world during a meeting with senior diplomats from Beijing. And then suddenly he was apprehended by the U.S. military. Tell us about how close China and Venezuela, especially Maduro, have been in recent years and all the Chinese investments there and so forth.
The Chinese investments are substantial. According to aid data, maybe there's about $106 billion worth of Chinese commitments to Venezuelan projects. Plus, there was also an outstanding balance that Venezuela owed China, which is thought to be in the neighborhood of $20 billion. The reason why that's important is because of oil. Venezuela was paying down its debt to China, which once was about $62 billion, by selling oil at discounted rates. With the U.S. in control of Venezuela's oil, it means that China is not going to get paid back, or at least there's a strong possibility that will not get paid back. So China right now is reeling. It has just taken blow after blow recently. And the other thing, Frank, is that it's not just Venezuela. An even more important Chinese proxy, which is Iran, their regime looks very fragile at this moment, and that means China could lose two very important beachheads within the space of weeks.
And let's not forget about Cuba, also very vulnerable now, as President Trump noted today. Of course, it was widely expected that Cuba's communist government would fall after the fall of the Soviet Union back in the early 90s, and Cuba's been hanging in there by a thread since then, very close to China as well, right? What do you think is going to happen there?
Well, because Cuba relies on oil from Venezuela on concessionary terms, I think Cuba is now in serious trouble. Question is whether anybody else in the region will supply Cuba with oil on those similar terms. People talk about Mexico, but Mexico doesn't really have the energy. So I think that the Cuban regime is certainly fragile right now as well.
See it tonight, read about it tomorrow, but hear it now on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC. Another interesting story in all of this was the Chinese air defense system that Venezuela apparently was using. What's your reaction to that story? The Chinese made a military defense network which apparently collapsed under the weight of U.S. forces over the weekend.
Well, we learned that American technology is so superior to China's because Venezuela, as you point out, had Venezuelan and Russian radars and their integrated command systems. They were all defeated by the U.S. There has been, especially over the last 3 or 4 months, a lot of Chinese propaganda about how advanced China's weapons are. I haven't seen very much of that in the last couple of days, and I think that's a reflection that the propagandists in Beijing realize that now is not the time to peddle an obviously false line.
We've seen precious metals hit record highs since all of this, gold and silver at record highs, a nervous time geopolitically, and there's been a lot of talk about China possibly making a move on Taiwan and all of this. What's happening on that front?
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying, especially on Chinese social media, that the extraction of Maduro is a template for China's extraction of President Lai Ching-te of Taiwan. But I don't think that that's really the case, or that's at least not the way that Chinese leaders think, because they're going to make their decision on whether to invade Taiwan based on a lot of factors. And almost all of those factors point to not invading Taiwan because China is in no position to do so. It would be very unpopular with the Chinese people. Chinese military is racked by purges. Its equipment probably is not as good as it appears. And also, I think the regime in Beijing is very casualty averse. So you put all those factors together, China will huff and puff about Taiwan, but it really won't invade.
All right, looks like the vice president of Venezuela running the show there now, although President Trump says we're going to be running Venezuela. How's this going to work, and what's next?
Yeah, we don't know that. We don't know what's going to happen and what's next. But apparently, Delcy Rodriguez, the interim president now, she is basically part of the Maduro regime. So there wasn't regime change, as a lot of people wanted to accuse the Trump administration of, but that regime was not popular before. And you have someone, Maria Corina Machado, who many people believe is a legitimate president of Venezuela. And so right now, she is still very popular. She's probably going to find her way back into the country, and eventually there will have to be elections. And I think that Delcy Rodriguez is going to have a very hard time beating Machado.
All right, Venezuela was also close with Russia, too. What about that part of the story?
Well, it's the same as really the story with China, that Russia and China could talk a lot about their support for Maduro, but they're really in no position to back their statements up because neither could exert power in the Western Hemisphere in opposition to the United States. The U.S. still has a very large armada in both the Caribbean and in the Eastern Pacific. And so I don't think the Chinese or Russians are going to try to take on the U.S.
At the end of all this, are we going to see what President Reagan had envisioned and his hope was from the north slope of Alaska to the tip of Tierra del Fuego, total freedom through this hemisphere?
I'm not exactly sure about that, Frank, but we are seeing the forces of freedom advance. We are seeing the hardline governments. Actually, even before Maduro, we saw a right-wing wave with the elections throughout the last 6 months or so. So I think that you're going to see, in general, a rightward movement continue.
Gordon Chang, thank you very much for taking the call. Senior fellow at the Gatestone Institute, author of numerous books, his latest including Plan Red on X. Check him out at Gordon G. Chang. Live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC, Los Angeles.
The UCLA women's basketball season is one you don't want to miss. Your top 10 Bruins are well on their way to another Final Four run. We need you to get to Pauley to support this incredible team. Led by Lauren Betts, Gabriela Jaquez, and Kiki Rice, newcomers Gianna Neepkins and Charlize Ledger-Walker. This group plays an exciting brand of basketball and wins. The time is now to come to see these stars in action. Big-time matchups are coming. Go to UCLABruins.com/tickets to secure your seats today. Can't wait to see you in Westwood cheering on the Bruins.